All right. So welcome everyone. So I've suggested that we gather a couple of things today. A chair, if you have one. You could also put on the end of your sofa if that's easier. And 2 to 3 blankets or towels, if possible, and probably a cushion as well. Yeah, have just a cushion off your sofa at hand. So I'm going to suggest we start sitting today. So I'm going to sit on my chair. Hopefully you can hear me fine once I get over there. Do let me know if you can't. You can just flick me a message through the chat. I'll just check that my phone is on silent. And so just see if you can see me okay. Excuse me while I sort out the screen. All right. So as mentioned in your email, I thought we'd focus on the abdominal area of our being today. Our enteric nervous system, or the home of our enteric nervous system, also known as our belly brain or our second brain. And so what's fascinating about this part of our being, this part of our nervous system, is it makes up 75% of our immunity, and it actually contains or is made up of 100 million nerve cells, 100 million nerve cells, which is more than actually in our spinal column. And it really has its own intelligence. It's something that's being researched a lot at the moment, and we're only really delving deeply into it more recently. But in ancient wisdom teachings, it's been the energetic center of our being. So it also manufactures its own hormones, including including being able to make its own so its serotonin is made throughout the body, but in the enteric nervous system, it's able to make its own serotonin, which is our one of our mood balancing neurotransmitters. Fascinating area. How can we use our yoga practice to nourish this part of our being? Well, today's practice will be an invitation of gentle activation, so nothing too strong, but gentle activation, developing awareness in the area and developing connection to this area of our being. And where we have activation and strengthening, we also, for balance, we need to be able to release and relax this part of our body. And through that activation, release, relaxing, flexibility, increasing circulation, increasing prana, energy to this part of our being, nourishing all those millions of cells. So as always, if any of these practices don't feel suitable for you today, then I really encourage you to do less or not do them at all. Adapt it if necessary. If you have eaten a big breakfast this morning, we will be doing some twists and some gentle squeezing and releasing. So be mindful, be careful, don't make yourself feel sick if you're still digesting. So it is recommended that you have an hour or two between eating and practice. And if you haven't had that, then just take care. So let's come and sit in an upright position. Now do use the back of your chair if you're feeling particularly tired, but if it's okay to, bring yourself forwards and have your feet planted on the floor. My heels are underneath my knees, and that's preferable. And here my spine is self-supporting. So if you can do that, then great. And if not, then use the back of the chair and shimmy your backside right back into the back of the seat. And just notice as you arrive in this seated posture, how it feels to be here. You might like to close your eyes as a symbol of turning your attention inwards. And just starting off by feeling your whole body, inhabiting your whole body here in your own space. So allow your physical presence to gradually emerge into your awareness. Your physical presence to gradually emerge as you inhabit your whole body, as you welcome your physical experience into your awareness. And if you'd like to, you could place one or both hands on the focal area. You might have one hand on the upper belly, one hand on the lower belly, or you might just have both hands on the middle to lower belly. And notice in this upright position, what is naturally activating to keep you stable and upright. So can you feel a very subtle or gentle activation in the very depth of your core? And even though that is necessary to maintain that level of stability, might you soften the abdominal wall? So the superficial layer of the abdomen is soft and relaxed. And just inviting, gently dropping your attention in this part of your being. What do you notice as you very gently sink your attention here? And you might invite your breathing body into your awareness. Not changing your breath at this stage, just noticing your natural breathing rhythm and natural area where you feel your breath moving your body. So inviting a subtle, soft awareness into this part of your being, into the space below your diaphragm, above your pubic bone, that whole abdominal region. Releasing your hands when you're ready to. And I invite you to take about 10 rounds of Hu breath. So Hu breath has lots of lovely benefits to this practice. One being helping us shift more into our parasympathetic state of our nervous system by lengthening the exhale. But also by lengthening the exhale, we naturally engage the core stabilizing muscles of the abdomen. So we don't need to make this happen, just allow this to happen organically. Those of you that know the Hu breath, feel free to just come into your own 10 rounds. You could use the extending of digits on each round of breath to count 10 if you'd like. And I'll give a brief explanation for those who are unfamiliar with the practice. So we take a natural inhale through the nostrils if possible. Opening the lips very subtly. And as you exhale slowly through the mouth, having a very gentle closing of the back of the throat, generating a subtle audible Hu-like sound, like an ocean-like wave sound. little bit like Darth Vader on an exhale. Now I'm just exaggerating the sound. Yours will be more subtle. You might just take a few rounds just to find the familiarity of the practice. Extending your exhale just as long as feels easeful, so not straining your breath in any way. How might it be to turn your attention to the feeling within the abdomen, particularly when you exhale? Being curious as to what is happening in this part of your body. Having the intention to follow the whole length of your exhalation. What is happening in the area of the abdomen, particularly in the lower region of the abdomen? Might you sink your attention more fully into this experience, however it is for you? No right or wrong, you're just exploring. Little gap in the lips, extending your exhale out in a steady flow. Gentle who-like sound in the back of your throat. Counting for yourself. When you reach around about 10, then relaxing the hands, relaxing the intention behind the breath, and just take a brief pause, a brief check-in. Consciously softening again your abdominal wall. Noticing if there is a gradual turning on or awakening of sensation in this part of your body. Now with your hands on your thighs and your feet parallel, heels underneath the knees, starting to tilt forward so your spine stays elongated and you're tilting towards the front of your sit bones, and then maybe completely off your sit bones to your upper thighs, coming into a diagonal spine, and then rebounding with the feet to draw the spine upright to neutral again. Very small movement, but just noticing what happens through the region of the abdomen and the lower back, maybe even the pelvic floor muscles. You might feel ready to explore floating the arms off and forwards. That might make the activation a little more obvious. But Remembering these stages are choices based on how you're feeling in the movement. You can always go back if it doesn't feel quite right, if it feels too strong. Connecting into what is naturally happening as you tilt the weight forwards into the feet, as the spine continues to elongate as it hinges forwards. Maybe just taking one more before coming back to neutral. Restacking your spine. And then I invite you to make your way down onto your back, lying on the floor. You may like to have a blanket underneath your head, but keep your pillow spare at the side. Just have that ready for later. But you might like a blanket underneath your head, nothing too high. Let's give you a moment to arrive. Make sure that you're comfortable. The legs could be extended away, they could be bent, knees bent, feet on the floor. And as you arrive, again, if you'd like to, replacing one hand, both hands on the area of the abdomen. And now that your spine is supported, now that the body is supine, does it feel here to invite a softening release around the abdominal wall, and then perhaps even penetrating a little deeper, as if the touch of the hands could encourage a sense of release. Eyes closed if this feels comfortable for you. And just taking a moment to connect back into this part of your being. And some of the benefits I personally find from this focal point of practice is just how quietening this can be for the mental chatter by consciously withdrawing the attention from the thinking mind and down into our belly brain. Can you sense a gradual quieting? And you might just have a subtle intention of the breath to move into the area of the lower belly. Use your hands as a feedback guide if you wish. And of course, if any of these breathing practices don't feel comfortable or easeful, then you use your own feelings as your guide. So you might return back to natural breath if that feels more suitable today. But otherwise, you could start to imagine that your navel was the entrance way and the exit way for your breath. As if you could breathe in through your navel, expanding the belly gently like a small balloon, and then you could breathe out through your navel. So this isn't our natural way of breathing. This is more of an intentional belly breath, a bit lower than how we would naturally breathe. Just connecting into any sense of soothing this area. This gentle expansion and condensing. Noticing how easy it is for you to relax this part of your body. Is there resistance today? Noticing if there's any discomfort. There's any feelings of blockages or inflammation. And taking this all simply as information, not right or wrong, good or bad, just information. Information that can guide you through your practice today. So we will be moving through a little bit of wringing out, squeezing and releasing. If the bowels are feeling particularly sensitive, or if you've had a lot of loose bowels recently, then you might like to do less of that kind of practice. We'll also be working through some gentle activation practices. So again, if energy levels are low or if there is pain, then just leave them out or adapt them. So releasing your hands now to the floor beside your body, releasing that breathing intention. And coming into some pelvic rocks in your own timing, so that the pelvis tilts forwards and you slightly overarch your lower back. And actually the knees need to be bent for this and the feet on the floor. And then the exhale, if you wish to link the breath with the movement, draws the lower back towards the floor, flattens the lower back to the ground, tilts the pelvis backwards. So there is a gentle rocking from the pelvic bowl by which changes the relationship of pelvis and abdomen, pelvis and lower back. And can you just allow the organic movement to occur and noticing what the effect is on this part of your being? The effect of the expansion as the pelvis tilts forwards. And what do you notice as the pelvis tilts back and the lower back flattens? Do you notice? Leaving this be after this next repetition and finding neutral spine, neutral abdomen. Inviting your right knee in towards your body. And taking the hands around the leg, around the knee, if that feels comfortable. And just arriving here for a moment. Taking some free breaths. If it feels appropriate to, try drawing the thigh in towards the abdomen, just giving it a gentle squeeze, gentle compression. Taking a couple of breaths here. Checking in that this is feeling appropriate for you. Allowing the expansion of the abdomen as you breathe, the condensing as you breathe. You could even slightly exaggerate the breath. And then extending the right heel towards the ceiling and just taking a gentle lengthening out of the back of the right leg. Foot flexed, foot pointed, foot moving, whatever you're drawn to do here. And if it feels suitable, starting to circle the whole of the right leg, as if you are drawing a circle on your ceiling. The knee can be bent. And I'm going to change direction. I'm just going to do 2 or 3 in one direction, 2 or 3 in the other. I'm just noticing the activation that is occurring in the abdomen, in the sides of the waist, in the lower back. And then slowly lowering the leg down. And coming onto your left side, so bending the right knee, placing the right foot on the floor, drawing the left thigh in, taking a moment just to arrive. Before exploring, sliding the left thigh in towards the abdomen, just creating a gentle pressure, a gentle compression. And the thigh actually doesn't need to be all the way into the belly to create this. There can still be space and a sense of compression here. And the breath and the movement of the breath will help that action. Breathing. Pausing here. So it's particularly this posture that's not advised if you've had any diarrhea recently. You can just move through this practice rather than holding the leg in place. And then extending the left foot up towards the ceiling when you're ready. Sensing into the length occurring down the back of the left leg, and if you'd like to, circling the whole of the leg, feeling into the activation of the abdomen. Where else do you feel it? And slowly lowering the leg down, taking your time. And taking a pause here, legs extended away or knees bent. Just take a moment to pause. It feels right to take some conscious, expansive breaths, as if breathing from the navel. And can you simply just be present with this process of softening the area again, releasing the area again. Being gently present with whatever you notice here. Any residue, any signals for you to take as information. When you're ready to, bending the knees back to constructive rest position. Opening the arms out to the side of the body, if that's comfortable for you, and coming into some windscreen wiper legs as you pivot onto the sides of the feet, allowing the legs to lower to one side and then the other. If you'd like a full rotation for the spine, you could turn the head in the opposite direction. And even though this is very nourishing for the spine, could you connect into the feeling from the area of your pelvic or your pubic bone to the area of your lower ribs and diaphragm? Can you sense a little deeper into the area of your abdominal organs? Any sense of wringing out or squeezing and releasing? And you may like to continue on with that, just a couple more rounds. You might like to explore taking the knees all the way into the body, feet off the floor, and lowering your legs to one side, engaging the abdomen to help support that process. But if this does feel too strong, particularly on your lower back, or if it feels uncomfortable in any way, then move back to windscreen wiper legs. And whichever version you're doing, find your way back to neutral. And these brief pauses between our movements and our postures are as important, if not more important, than the movements themselves. It really gives you the opportunity to feel into your experience and the residue of the movements. Noticing if these pauses are inviting a more awakened or a more connected feeling to your belly brain. Any sense of lighting up or illuminating all those millions of nerve cells. All that electrical information firing moment by moment, its own intelligence. So a little bit more activation now, if you're up for it. As you bend your knees and have your heels this time underneath your knees, I'm going to take the cushion between the thighs, and I'm folding mine in half to make more of a block width. So find what works for you, but what we're aiming for is that the knees and the feet are about hip distance apart. And just arrive here, just be present for a moment with this prop and notice its effect. And if you're not quite sure, you might just try it without, noticing the feeling within the inner thighs and the very lowest part of the abdomen, pelvis, and then with what changes. Softening the belly here, and as you inhale, taking your exhale and inviting a gentle activation with your pelvic floor muscles, and preferably just the pelvic floor muscles. So relaxing the anus still, the abdomen is still not completely engaged. So trying to isolate just the pelvic floor muscles on the exhale, and then relaxing everything as you inhale again. So it might feel similar to Kegel exercises or stopping urination partway through. Using that inhale to relax the abdomen, breathe freely. And you might like to just continue on with this gentle practice of pelvic floor activation. You could progress into a small low bridge. So same again, we inhale. As we exhale, we tilt the pelvis backwards as if you're trying to touch your pubic bone towards your navel. So you're keeping a curled action. Pelvic floor might naturally lift, or you could consciously lift the pelvic floor and the abdomen engaging. You might stay for a whole round of breath if that feels suitable before releasing back down, and maybe taking just a moment to rest, to breathe. And taking that again if you'd like, inhaling naturally, exhaling, curling the pubic bone towards the navel, lifting the pelvic floor. engaging the lower abdominal muscles. And just be careful not to squeeze everything too tightly. It can just be a very gentle activation, and that can actually be more effective in endurance and strength building, gradual strength building. So we don't want to tighten everything up and feel a strong strain. So part of balancing this whole region of the body is this fine tuning of awareness, so that when we start to activate, we can do so gently, consciously, and without strain. Good. So you may like to progress, just coming a little bit higher. So releasing the low bridge action and just rolling up through the spine to a higher bridge. And just allowing whatever activation naturally happens to occur. So on these more fluid bridge movements, could you just allow the natural occurrence of activation? You choose whether you hold the lift for a breath or whether you just continually move. And the next time you replace your spine to the floor, release your cushion, release your legs if you'd like to, hands at your side or hands on your abdomen. What is the residue beneath your hands? What do you notice? Any pulsing or vibration or movement of circulation or energy? What is your own unique experience here? Over the next 4 breaths, could you encourage the breath, or could the breath encourage the abdomen and the connective tissue within the abdomen and the organs to soften, to melt, to yield? Another couple of breaths here. And this next practice again is an activation practice. So you might just do a couple and then rest if energy levels are low. You might just rest this one out if you don't feel like more activation. I'm going to bring my knees perpendicular, or my shins perpendicular to the floor. Knees bent at right angles. I'm going to keep this angle of my knee and my foot as I exhale and just start to lower the toes in the direction of the floor. And then draw the leg back up to the starting position. You could have your palms facing down on the floor for extra support if you'd like, but we are trying to target the work in the core stabilizing muscles, in the lower back, in the lower belly. And really, the slower the better here. You might notice when you slow the movement right down, it feels harder. It might be that the toes come all the way to the floor and just have a little toe tap. If you're dipping your toes in water, just be careful that the thigh stays at that right angle, so rather than the heel dropping towards the buttocks, keeping that same angle of lower leg and thigh. And I've already done a few of these today, so I'm starting to feel shaky and tired. So I'm going to stop. So if you feel the same, if you start to feel a bit of jittery or tired, then either take a break or stop completely. And come into whatever position it is being asked for. Could be just a still position, that could be moving. And when you do come to stop and pause, could you release any effort? Could the pelvic floor muscles relax? The abdominal muscles relax? Can the sides of the waist move freely with the breath? And if you haven't finished yet, then do make sure you take a rest before moving on. And before we move out of this supine position, could you take a couple more breaths here, encouraging release and softening. And so there's an invitation now to make your way off the ground and briefly coming into some movements in a tabletop posture. So we'll take 5 or so minutes in tabletop, if that's somewhere that your body would like to come into, and then we'll come into a couple of restorative supported postures. So setting yourself up in a way that suits you. And checking that your hands are underneath your shoulders, your knees are underneath your pelvis. And I'd like you to imagine that you've got all of your motor ability, all of your moving ability in your navel. So we're going to initiate the movement from our navel. It might be helpful to imagine that you've got a pen nib attached to the navel dangling down and you're drawing a circle with the navel. So circling from the navel, the rest of the body just following suit. The circles might be small, they might be big, doesn't matter. How can you move as if completely initiated by the abdomen, by the navel? You can change direction at any time. You could explore doing tiny circles. You could explore bigger circles. And you could just take a moment to take your own pattern driven by the navel. Any movements where your navel wants to take the rest of the body. So you can be playful here. You can draw the shape of your name, the letters of your name. You could spiral the abdomen directed by the navel. You can tilt what feels unfamiliar, feels a bit unusual. Can all of that movement be dictated and initiated from the navel? And of course, continue on this exploration for as long as you'd like, but when you feel ready to, either coming down to rest in a child's pose, taking the weight off the hands. Hands could come down by the feet or underneath the head, or any other restful posture that might be lying on your side if coming into a child's pose doesn't work for you today. There might be more of an active child's pose with the pelvis lifted. But whatever posture you're in right now, could you completely relax the belly? And if the spine is rounded, if you're in child's pose or going on your side, then could that softening through the abdominal wall enable this slight restriction of your breath and therefore The breath moving more into the side body, the back body. If the spine is rounded, then how does this contact feel in the abdomen? How does it feel to have a little bit of compression there? And then coming out of this rest, coming back up onto hands and knees. And if you feel that you've got the energy for one last activation, then extending the opposite fingers, the opposite toes away from one another. You can keep them on the floor for the time being, and then sliding them back in. So opposite fingers, left fingertips reaching forwards, right toes reaching back, sliding back in. And if you're feeling up to it today, you might hover the fingers and toes off the floor slightly, and then drawing them back in. Noticing the amount of activation needed for this stabilization of your spine. We want to keep the spine neutral as the limbs extend and retreat. And you can play with this. The arm and leg might lift a little higher, no higher than the spine. Being careful not to collapse the rib cage towards the floor, so the spine stays stable. The core supports the spine staying stable. And don't jeopardize your posture for more repetitions. So as soon as you start to feel a collapse or a fatigue in the body, then come to rest. Come to rest when you're ready in whatever posture feels restful. So child's pose is a nice go-to because you can just press yourself back to it. It's not comfortable for all. So other options could be sitting on your backside, drawing the knees in, could be sitting on your chair and forward bending over the legs, could be lying on your side. Just taking another moment here, resting, releasing. Good. So I'm going to invite you to set yourself up in a supported lying posture to encourage an opening through this whole region that we are exploring today. So it's a little bit like our supported bound angle posture that we do sometimes over the spine in class or over blankets. We'll use blankets today. So taking one of your blankets and folding it in a way that creates a rectangle about that width. I'm going to fold mine in accordion style. So I've just folded it over once in one direction and then back on itself on the other. Creating a rectangular shape like so. That's going to sit on my spine or end of my mat. And I'll do the same with the second blanket. And we need it about the length of your spine. A little less because it's not going to be supporting your whole spine. And our second blanket's going to sit on top of the first, but a little bit further back. So we've got a little gap, and that little gap is going to be the distance between your lumbar spine and your thoracic spine, or your lower ribs. So you can play around with that once you come into it. And then we need another blanket. You may want your pillow for your head. I'm going to fold the end of my blanket over for my neck. If you don't have that extra length, then you may need your pillow for your head support. So just have that close by. So I'm going to sit with my backside on the floor, not on the blanket. And then as I lie myself back, that first blanket's going to support my lumbar spine, my lower back. Second blanket's going to support my rib cage, beginning of my rib cage. And then as I lie myself down, I know that I need some extra support underneath my head. I'm just going to lengthen my lower back as I come in, create a little bit more space for it. And then you can either roll your top blanket under into the nook of your neck, or you might take your pillow there. Now, it tends to be advised, before I go into that, something I enjoy doing here is just lifting the chest slightly and drawing the shoulder blades down the back. That just creates a nice opening in the upper back. So it's generally advised that when your spine is in a back bend, which we are essentially in here, that the knees stay bent. So you could just have the feet on the floor, constructive rest style. You could open the feet wide, let your knees knock in. But as we're not in a particularly big back bend, it's actually only the lumbar spine that's bending rather than the upper spine, you could explore taking the legs lengthened. Personally, I don't find this constricting on my lower back, but you sense and feel into your own experience and make a decision based on that. But either way, whatever position your legs are in here, you might just early on in the posture notice this natural opening through the lower abdomen. This tilting forwards of the pelvis in a supported way. It's creating this wide brimmed opening of the belly. You may again explore the balloon breath or the navel breath, as if you could inhale through your navel, exhale from your navel. And if you are exploring that breathing intention, noticing if it feels a little easier to do in this open posture. You might be experiencing gargles and googles from your internal organs, as I am here. Moment by moment, sinking a little more fully into rest. A little more fully into non-doing. As you allow the structures from the skin of your abdomen all the way through the fascias, the connective tissues, the muscles, all the way to the organs. And here right now, could there even be a sense of relaxing the organs? So that the digestive tracts, the reproductive organs, and the eliminatory organs can all have a sense of relaxing. releasing. You can choose here whether you just allow your breath to find its own rhythm, and you just come into natural breath, or whether it feels serving for you to have some intention behind the breath, that navel breath, that slight extension, that slight lengthening. Whatever feels most serving for you here. And you can bounce and play with either. And just being here, maybe for another 30 seconds or so. And of course, if you've arrived here and it's just feeling very nourishing and you're not quite ready to change postures, then stay longer. This is your practice. Otherwise, I'm going to invite you into some sort of gentle inversion where we put our legs higher than our pelvis and our heart. So there's different ways of doing this. I'm going to suggest coming into a full Viparita Karani with legs up the wall. Now, I don't know what your space setup is. You might not have a wall, or I've got a cupboard here that I'm going to put my legs up. But you do have your chair from earlier, so you can use your chair, do legs up chair posture with the same effects. So I'll just demonstrate legs up wall. Bring with you a blanket or pillow for underneath your head. And in class, I tend to teach this posture with the pelvis a little away from the wall. I'm actually going to do it today with my pelvis right up towards the wall. You can explore what feels right for you. This can be quite a nice way of just creating that right angle with the legs and having this full dropping down of fluids in the body. So I'm going to suggest just having the pelvis flat on the floor today, whether your legs are coming up on a chair or the legs going up the wall or up a cupboard like mine. But of course, if you'd like some extra padding underneath your pelvis, then you might put a blanket underneath it. And whatever way works for you, might be a combination of shimmying in or rocking in. And I'm just going to set up my head support first, and you should be doing that also if your legs up chairing as well. Hopefully you can see vaguely with the screen. And you might I quite enjoy just a bit of weight over the abdomen and the pelvis. So if you've got a spare blanket there, then that can feel helpful for dropping the attention and for grounding. Can also be quite nice to have some weight on the feet or on the shins if you're in legs up chair posture, and that tends to require a yoga helper. So if you've got anyone nearby that's willing to help set you up, then you could request that. I'll give you a moment to arrive in whichever posture you're setting yourself up in. And actually we're only going to spend 5 or so minutes here, but of course that is also your choice. And as you arrive, notice, be very present with the beginning stages of this inversion. What sensations do you notice in the pelvis, in the lower abdomen? You raise your legs and almost turn yourself upside down, essentially. You might be noticing a rhythmic pulse, or a sense of movement or flow through the legs and into the pelvis and belly. You might notice vibrations. You might notice something very different to that. The important thing is that you stay connected to what you do feel here. Whatever placement your legs are in, could they release here? Could they let go of all effort that is not needed? And as they release, could you consciously relax the pelvic floor muscles? Relaxing those deeper core muscles that support the spine, often known as corset muscles. And also relaxing the superficial muscles that are closer to the surface. So that with this softening, with this conscious release, there comes perhaps a sense of space, a sense of opening, a sense of presence. Perhaps you notice more movement in this area of your body, more stimulation, more activity in this upside down posture. And feel free to stay here for as long as you'd like. I'm going to invite you to come and lie in a more neutral Shavasana, but of course stay where you are if you've arrived and you don't want to move yet. But if you'd like to, making your way slowly in your own way into either a more vanilla flavored Shavasana, just lying on your back, legs straight or legs bent. Make sure that you're as comfortable as you can be. You might choose to lie on your side or on your front as well. So whether your spine can be neutral. And now with your body on one plane, it can be a more apparent state of quietening or moving towards quiet. So as you set yourself up and arrive, as you sink your attention into your whole experience here, resting in your body. Whole body releasing. We talked recently about having a very subtle quality of attention whereby we don't disturb the experience. I love the metaphor of the attention being so light as if a dandelion seed landed on a bubble without popping it. That lightness of attention whereby we don't we don't disturb the experience that we're having. And as the doing stops, the invitation of quietening you might imagine your inner contents, your being, like an area of water, like a pristine alpine lake. And that when it's undisturbed, over time it can settle gradually and moves towards stillness. Allowing everything to settle. This moving towards a state of stillness is not an action, doesn't require effort. In fact, it's the opposite. It requires no effort. And it requires letting go into each moment. Sinking deeper into your experience behind the comings and goings. Connecting to a quiet place behind all of that. A still place. Your ground of awareness. And just resting here, being here. Sometimes it's harder to feel that quality of stillness or quiet. In those times you might imagine it. Imagine a quiet, still backdrop. Savoring this place of rest. Being present with the relief, the layers of your being. Able to just be still for a moment. Connect to a deeper part of yourself. Beyond the noise and chatter of the mind. Beyond even the workings of the body. And perhaps feeling as if this place is your refuge, is your home. So that relief in the depth of your being might be calling for longer time and stillness, in which case just turn the screen off and continue to rest in your own space for as long as you need. If you have stuff to move into after this session, and you feel ready to bring your practice to a close, then starting the transition out, not physically yet. Begin by feeling your whole body in this shape. And I suggest before moving again that you just take a moment to reflect on how you feel right now. Does your second brain feel more awakened, or do you feel more connected to it? Is there more sensation or feeling in that part of your body? And has there been an effect on the mind and on the overall state, flavor of your experience? And starting your own transition out of this rest. So that might be a little bit of small movements in the extremities of the body, the fingers, toes. Movements where you can start to bring the body out of a still posture. And do take your time. It's recommended to sit after lying down as you transition out of your practice. You might sit on your chair or the floor. You might bring the hands to the abdomen once more. And just this very act of placing hands on your body brings attention. I do this often throughout my day. This very act of dropping our awareness down into the abdominal bowl. Say energy follows awareness, bringing nourishing energy to the second brain, to the belly brain. As we trust and honor its intelligence. Surrendering the thinking brain, just being present here. And if you'd like to, bring the hands together in front of your heart to send some gratitude towards yourself today for nourishing your being. Namaste.